Alright guys, so we are ready to upload with our new video. Chapter's name is Long Walk to Freedom and the channel's name is Learn with Ravi. So here is a brief introduction about us and the summary of the chapter. So it's basically a historical story written by Nelson Mandela, and this is summary of his biography which was being written during his life at prison. So we are going to explain with you summary, explanation, critical theme and conclusion. Let's move on ahead. And yes, of course, this is our team. And then moving ahead. Now, the critical analysis of the chapter. So, I guess you must all have gone through the chapter and understood that this chapter is basically related to South African President Nelson Mandela. So, Long Walk to Freedom. It's basically an autobiography of Nelson Mandela, which tells the life story of South Africans' first post-apartheid president. Now, let me briefly summarize you what's the meaning of apathy. Apathy means a policy or system of segregation or discrimination on grounds of race. So this was being practiced in South Africa. So Mandela rose to the leadership of apartheid struggle to become one of the 20th century's most iconic world leaders. He began writing the book in prison in 1975, which was being published in 2004. Okay, so Nelson Mandela was born in South Africa in 1918, and as a child, like he was destined to become a royal advisor. But the allure of the big city, Johannesburg, capital city of South Africa, drew him to a life of political activism. Like in Johannesburg, Mandela trained to be a lawyer. His experience with apartheid, the collection of racist laws by which South Africa's white minority dominated its black majority, led him to join the African National Congress, the leading organization opposing apartheid. And now, quickly summarizing. So basically, Mandela's prominent role in resisting apartheid brought the full force of the government down upon him, and he was tried for treason. He and his confederates were acquitted in 1961, but the trial and subsequent crackdowns convinced Mandela that apartheid could not be defeated solely through non-violent means. He helped establish the Ukhonto we Sizwe, a paramilitary force dedicated to overthrowing the apartheid regime. Under his leadership, the Ukhonto we Sizwe MK party, which he formed, was concerned a campaign of sabotage while Mandela traveled abroad to seek funding and training from other African leaders. So obviously, like if somebody conspires against the government, he had to face the repercussions also. Mandela was eventually captured and put on trial with other members of the MK in 1973. MK is uh, Umkhonto we Sizwe, which I already explained. So this time, like he was convicted and sentenced to life in prison. Even from prison, Mandela remained a leader of the apartheid struggle and within a few years managed to establish secret contact with the exiles party amid African national leadership parties together, and they gathered international support and planned acts of sabotage. And now, the most important thing is, over the course of his imprisonment, Mandela became an iconic figure of anti-colonial struggle around the world. Like people all across the world started knowing about the Mandela's activities, and they started giving their contribution towards his effort in removing apartheid from the soil of South Africa. And demands for his release grew. He started gathering and collecting supports from all international leaders, and when Mandela was jailed separately from his compatriots, he secretly reached out to his apartheid government in the hopes of bringing them in the bargaining table. He spent several years slowly convincing government leaders to negotiate with the African National Party to end the conflict and write a new constitution giving equal rights to all South Africans. So he was a strong advocate of giving equal opportunity and equal right to all the people, irrespective of their caste, creed, religion, or sex. Facing an imminent economic collapse due to sanctions and unable to abate the rioting in the townships, the South African government released Mandela in 1990. Now, when Mandela was a student, the meaning of freedom to him was different. The freedom meant to him was going outside with the friends, playing here and there, having some pocket money from the parents, spending night outs. But the moment he grew up, he entered the age of puberty. He started realizing that freedom is not what he had understood. Freedom means expression of thoughts. One should get full liberty to express their opinions, express their thoughts, and express their viewpoints also. Right? And according to him, like he says that in the life, in our life, the man basically has two obligations. The one towards his family, his parents, his wife, and his children. And of course, second obligation towards the country, its people, and the community. Now, this is the most important. You can expect the questions from this. Everyone fulfills his duty as per his inclination and interest, but it was very tough to fulfill in a country like South Africa. When Mandela became an adult, then he understood that his freedom was only an illusion. In fact, he was the slave of exploitation. He only understood that not only he was a slave, but his other family members were also. So he started realizing that freedom is mandatory for them who were suppressing others in the past. They also have the right to have it because snatcher of others' freedom is a prisoner of the same. Thus, the oppressor is as much a prisoner as the oppressed is. The oppressor too is not free. And of course, yes, I would like to say here that the brave man is not the one who does not feel afraid, but he's the one who conquers the fate. Mandela said that every man has his duty towards his country and community too, and they are supposed to fulfill their duties while in time, whenever demanded by the country. So one needs to take self start. Now let's move on next. So here are some word and meanings. You can go through that and note it down. In next page also, I've given some word meanings. You can have the word meaning, look on the word meanings, and again note it down in your notebooks. Now, summary. Already explaining you. So, 10th May is called as Autumn Day in the soil of South Africa because on the very same day, people of South Africa got freedom from existing apathy system. And also, like a term has been used called rainbow gathering. It is called rainbow gathering because when South Africa finally reached freedom from the apathy system, international leaders across the globe were gathered there to celebrate these functions, and they were in different uniform, having different colors of flags in their hands. So this was giving a clear-cut outlook of rainbow gathering. And now, if I'll move on next. Here are some features about Nelson Mandela. His amazing and heroic life not only inspires, but it also educates because the terms dignity and integrity are unfamiliar to some of the people. So one always needs to maintain dignity and integrity. And Long Walk to Freedom has its roots buried deep beneath the surface. It will always represent the real victory against the apartheid, tyranny, and colonialism. Mandela's autography basically ends just before he entered the office of the president. He writes that the end of apathy was not the end of hate or division in South Africa. Because even though it was a long walk to freedom for him, his people, national reconciliation was still lacking. And despite the freedom, like Mandela knew that only sustained pressure on the government would lead to terms accepted to the African national community in fits and starts. Negotiations between his party, like African National Party, and the South African government took place from 1992 to 1993. That is almost for a year. And during this period of negotiation, South Africa was racked with political uncertainty that erupted into sporadic violence, inter-ethnic rivalries between the countries. Various African peoples were secretly inflamed by government security forces and African leaders seeking to maintain their own privileged positions. Several times all seemed lost as talks were suspended and the country teetered on the edge of civil war. Mandela here played a very critical role in repeatedly calming tensions between the white people and Africans as well as between Africans of different tribal backgrounds. So this all I have already summarized. You can make a short note from here. Again, those were when he was a student, when he started fighting against the Apache system. It was the toughest for him. He had lost his father to his family, decided that it is the best for him to learn and live next to Tembu's acting regent in Makaswini, a chief Shogintota, a chief Jongintaba Dalendibo. And he was the person, like Dalendibo insisted that Mandela should be a well educated South African, which will grant him the opportunity to be the smartest people of his generation. So we can conclude that Mandela was not basically a South African freedom fighter only, but he was a fighter for justice, not just for South Africa, but for the entire world. Mandela wanted to remove those apartheid chants that killed the African community. Nelson Mandela basically he distinguished himself through the ability to resist temptation to adjust to the system that was evidently wrong. Even though the government officials tried to portray him as a violent revolutionary, he on numerous occasions stood up against violence even at the cost of his life. So he never cared, never bothered about his life. From to this standpoint, Mandela will always be remembered as a real fighter who fought against oppression and exploitation of African community, African people. He had people's full support that backed his ideas and methods. That popularity led Mandela to become the president of South Africa. Now, here I would likely to quickly conclude one thing. Like the moment Mandela started thinking to fight against the prevalent apathy system, he was not having any backing behind him. He was not having a single person support behind him. But he was having courage in his mind. He was having his own mental support, which motivated him to keep moving ahead. And later on, it's mentioned in the chapter that the rainbow gathering was there. So, with the passage of time, international people, strong international leaders, they started supporting Mandela's endeavor. So, because they understood very clearly that this person is fighting for the humanity, he's not having any concern for his own belongingness, but still he's fighting to get the fundamental rights of all the citizens of South Africa. Now, here are some famous quotes from the chapter. Like you can note it down also. You can implement in your life also. And let's move on ahead. So here are some question and answers. You can have a look on the question and answers. And according to me, there are certain questions which are very important from both point of view. I'll just give you a brief synopsis. Just hold on a sec. I'll just tell you there are some questions and answers which are expected to be asked in board examination. Like the first question itself is, can you say how 10th May is an autumn day in South Africa? Yes. So this is very important question. 10th May is an autumn day in South Africa because on this day, there was the largest gathering of international leaders on South African soil for the installation of South Africa's first democratic non-radical government. And then let me move to the next question, important question. I'm just telling you the brief questions which are important from the board's perspective only. Yes, question number 2, why were two national anthems sung? So the answer is, on the day of the inauguration, two national anthems were sung, one by the whites and other by the blacks, to symbolize the equality of black and whites. And yes, there is this question is also important. What do the military generals do? How has their attitude changed and why? So when Mandela started fighting against the Apache system, like he was getting operations from the military people also, because obviously the military people were supposed to provide support to government itself, and Mandela was fighting against the system of the government. So military people were against the Mandela's thesis. So the highest military generals of the South Africa defense forces and pilots, they saluted Mandela and placed their loyalty. When the military general saluted Mandela, he was not unmindful of the fact that not too many years ago they would not have saluted him but arrested him also. So this change in attitude was due to the fact that a new non-radical government was elected and Mandela was then the president of South Africa. So when Mandela was not in the power, military was against him. And when Mandela rose to the power, military was in favor of him. Oh. Yes, again, an important question. What are the twin obligations? Now, this is a very important question. You can always expect in your pre-boards and boards. What are the twin obligations according to Nelson Mandela? So the one obligation towards the family and another towards his country and countryman. And let me move ahead. Yes. And this question: how did Mandela's understanding of the freedom change with age and experience? So when he was a boy, when as a boy, Mandela did not have a hunger of freedom because he thought that he was born free. He believed that as long as he obeyed his father and abided by the customs of his tribe, he was free in every possible manner. He had certain needs as a teenager and certain needs as a young man. Gradually, he realized that he was selfish during his boyhood. He slowly understood the moment he started attaining his poverty, he was being grown up now, and he started thinking radically. He understands that it's not just his freedom that is being curtailed, but the freedom of all the blacks. It is after attaining this understanding that he developed a hunger for the freedom of his people. So when he finally grew up, he started thinking, realizing in a broader way, and he understood that his freedom is not only moving outside with the friends or having certain pocket money from the parents' end, but freedom is all about the freedom of people of the soil, freedom of people of the tribe, community, society. Everybody should get freedom to express their thoughts, to practice the profession of their own choice, to express their own feelings, sentiments, worship according to their own religion, caste, creed. So that's all, guys. We are just finished with this chapter, Nelson Mandela. And in case of any doubt, you can always get back to us via the comments. And very soon, we'll be uploading next video of ours. Thank you so much for your time, guys.